You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 221, and it is another Friday edition. My name is Clark from 5cardguys.com, and you can also find me on Instagram at 5cardguys. Co-hosting with me, as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. John's away for the next couple of episodes, but we hope to have him back soon. All right, off the top today, I just want to spend a few minutes talking about Topps Series 2 baseball. All right, I know we've discussed it before on this pod, but we've both ripped some Topps Series 2 recently. And so, yeah, let's talk about our initial observations and thoughts on the product. You know, is it as good as Topps Series 1? You know, was it a fun rip for you? And, you know, most importantly, did you get any hits? Your initial thoughts, Hyung.
So normally I go, obviously, hobby jumbo and not retail. Mm-hmm. But I did pick up 2 blasters just to kind of see, because everybody was telling me retail's pretty good with Series 2. So I ended up getting 2 blasters. I thought the rip was pretty fun myself. I know usually paper products are pretty boring. So I wasn't expecting much, to be honest. I do like the rookie classes in Series 2, as well as kind of like the potential hits you can get. I think Fanatics did a better job with, putting more things to hit, like the Jackson Holiday, as well as other, like even CJ Stroud and Victor Wembanyama. I know It might be kind of like gimmicky because it's like, what's Wemby doing in a baseball product? But like I said, it ties back into kind of like the supply demand of, even Wemby's autos and stuff like that. So they're playing strategy right. With that said, on the retail side, I think I did pretty well, I would say, for retail. I did better than what I expected. I hit a Yamamoto green foil, number 499, which is, to me, it's nice. Like I would never expect to hit any numbered card, yet alone kind of like one of the bigger chases. I did also hit on the second box. So that was in one box. And then the second box was a Tim Hudson auto, which was very surprising. I haven't heard Tim Hudson's name since probably for 20 years. We all loved Tim Hudson. I mean, he was a dominant pitcher growing up when we seen, and it was cool to pull like a veteran auto. So I did extremely well on those, and usually I'm not a fan of retail, but it was okay. And with that, you get a bunch of base rookie cards of decent players as well. So you obviously, get the decent rookie cards, even though they're paper, maybe hold on to them. And then, when the prices dictate to grade them, you kind of send them off maybe a year or two, depending on how that player pans out, right? So overall, I enjoyed it compared to other paper rips like previous years, like 23 was okay, 22 was, and 21, 20. I thought it sucked, like paper. And going back to even like a lot of people are going to say they overprint this. There's all these I know John's going to say there's all these parallels that like nobody wants. And I think it's a necessary evil because at the end of the day, it has to be at scale to how many they're printing. So you gotta print out a bunch of more parallels. But I also think that the value of true parallels in the paper product become way more demandable. So your, Father's Day, Mother's Day, your clears, your Independence Day, your blacks, the ones that are like the hobby favorites, I guess, right?
Right.
So I was thinking about that, saying, is there too many parallels? But then I wouldn't have hit that Yamamoto green foil to $4.99 if there was no parallel, if there was no new parallel, right? So, overall, I was happy with it. Of course, that's not the case for everybody, so I get it. Like majority of the time, you are not going to hit anything.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm one of those examples, so that's a good segue into what I was going to share. And you kind of actually said a couple of points already that I had in mind, but first I want to point out Fanatics marketing works. Okay, I wanted to rip this product because you're seeing all the chase cards and the hits that are available out there. Obviously, we talked about the Jackson Holiday, SP, Fun Phase, all the different types of variation cards, but to your point, I realized after ripping a hobby box, I bought a hobby box for 120 Canadian, so about 90 US.
Right.
And we joke about this, especially with Will on the show. When the hit is either a relic or an auto, you usually get a relic for some reason, right? and I got a bloody relic, a Dansby Swanson bat relic, which is I think worth $3.
Oh man!
So that was my hit, and so yeah, when you showed me that you got a Tim Hudson auto, I'm like, that's crazy. Out of retail, out of a blaster.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually went out to get a blaster yesterday because of that.
Sorry, man. How'd you do?
And I didn't get an auto, but I did better than the hobby. And, I didn't get a major hit. My best hit was probably the Royal Blue parallel. Speaking of tons of parallels, the Royal Blue is exclusive to the Blaster retail, right? Of Pete Crow Armstrong. So color match, you know how I love color match. You know how I love PCA. So there you go.
That's that's a great card. I think that has potential to pay off the box, like eventually down the road. Obviously, It's not worth it now, but if Pete Crow Armstrong, pans out the way he's capable of, I think that would be a pretty nice hit overall because I think blasters are like 40 Canadian. So it would be equivalent to 3 blasters to 1 hobby box.
Yep. And you know what? Moving forward, I might just get 3 blasters next time for Topps paper products at least.
See, I think I'm the other way around. I think I would get the hobby box still.
Really?
Yeah, okay. Even though I feel like retail, you won't get the crazy hits in my opinion because there are hobby exclusive. I believe the clear acetate are hobby exclusive, and as well as other parallels that are strictly hobby box related. So I think there are more chances to hit like a bigger card in hobby. But I think that's one thing I would like to see hobby boxes go to is the 1 guaranteed auto. I think because paper products, they're rarely on card autos anyways. So, get rid of the relic or at least include 1 auto, 1 relic. I'm sure it doesn't cost them
100%
anything. Like the worst thing to do is buy a hobby box and get a napkin relic that is worth nothing. Like what you were a victim to. But I truly believe they could step up their game and say, okay, hobby, because at this point I think it's better to just rip a jumbo and get your auto and then your 2 silver packs. And that's another thing. You do get a silver pack. So that's right. So I think that's the draw with hobby and jumbos is you get the silver pack as opposed to the blasters. You're just dealing with paper cards.
Yeah. Good point. And actually, from the hobby box, that was my biggest hit. It was a $5 or $6 Yamamoto Mojo Prism
silver pack,
or
nice.
Parallel, out of the silver pack. So yeah, that's true. And I think I was going to make that point too. If you want an auto, you got to get the jumbo. Yeah. Don't even take the risk with hobby boxes if you're just going for the auto strictly. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I learned my lesson that way. I'm just saving up now for the Topps Chrome product.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for. You're excited for.
Yeah, 100%. Topps Chrome.
Guaranteed auto, right? Out of the Topps Chrome at least. So definitely more expensive, but at least you're guaranteed auto. I've just had generally better luck with Topps Chrome too. So I'm looking forward to that. But you know what? At the end of the day, still very fun rip. I know it's a paper product, but Fanatics doing a great job marketing Top Series 1 and 2, and go for the retail blasters. That's what I've learned, and hopefully you do better than I did. All right, let's go to our discussion of the day, and it's actually 3 different news items or announcements, all coming from PSA, the #1 grading company at the moment. So first, PSA, they're now offering grader notes. Okay, and in their words, they say, quote, "We're bringing clarity to grade reveals, detailing the card defects detected during authentication and grading, beginning with express level submissions and above," end quote. And it comes with no extra charge, they add, right? So yeah, what do you think of this latest development from PSA?
I'm not necessarily praising PSA because I think this should have been done, and
Right.
it should be offered at every single level.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's not like, wow, great job PSA. It's like, hey, you're behind the times. People have been doing this. So someone like PSA who have the money to do it, right, should be doing it, because if you're authenticating a card and you're grading a card, full transparency should be. So all my PSA 7s, I want to know why I got a damn PSA 7, because I thoroughly looked at that. Right? Yeah. And I guarantee you, I'll crack all my PSA 7s. I have a PSA 6 as well. And I guarantee you, I'll resend that, and we'll see what it gets and why. But that's the thing. It's like you'd have to send it express to get the reason why, which I think is a crock of, just it's right. Yeah, come on, PSA. You're hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion company. I don't know what their valuation is. It's like that's the standard. Every grading company is doing that now. Right. Yep. So it's like, that's something that should be standard. So I'm not saying that it's great at the end of the day. It was needed. And I wish just they offered it for every card, not just express, because if you calculate the margins, what's the express cost? It's pretty expensive. Yes. And that's what you're paying for now, is someone to grade it thoroughly and write a report, as opposed to and that brings up the question too, is, when you purchase a slab and it's an expensive PSA 10 slab or PSA 9 slab, will you factor that in with a price, or like in terms of a resell? So let's just say that was submitted through Express. You had like $1,000 card that was submitted Express. If you're a purchaser of that card, does that mean that it's more valuable, or is it the same? Like anything. So if something went express versus non-express, so you bought a card that has a report versus a card that didn't have a report, will that affect the resale value?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, is the report public, right? Or is it just to the person that submitted the PSA card?
Right. I would imagine that it would, if you look up the certification number, that's what I would think. You see all the flaws with it. Right.
That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's what they said exactly, though. Right?
Because and like, it brings up. It's not saying that this happens all the time, but let's just say, you see a visible flaw in a card, but it wasn't on the report. Right. You wouldn't know if it happened after the slab, because I've seen PSA 10s with bad corners, for instance.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, where it's just like, I remember I showed you guys a Shohei Ohtani rainbow foil, and I bought it for a good price. It was PSA 10, and under closer inspection, and this was years back, I was like, this corner is mangled. Like, this is not a PSA 10. Yeah. Right. So having those reports, I think, will clarify stuff like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. I guess my initial thoughts was exactly what you're thinking. It should be offered at every grade level or submission level, right? So maybe they will. Maybe they will later. But it would have been nice to just, that would have been more impressive to me. Like, at every submission level, you get a grader's notes, right? If they're doing it anyways, theoretically, if they're doing it anyways, why not offer it at every submission level?
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
And I think efficiently they can do it, because you have the AI technology. Get a bot to do it. The bot will do a better job than probably a human being, to be honest, because there's room for human error, and it's subjectivity. So I think it would be more likely that AI will take over, especially now the way things are going around in our world with AI developing. I see it going there very soon, where it's all AI graded, which I'm for, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The other funny thing that I saw because of this announcement is all the memes from other social media influencers about how Beckett kind of already does this with their subgrades,
Right.
you know? But that kind of, thinking about it a little bit more, that kind of like puts Beckett in a bad light. They've been doing this all along, but they can't capitalize on the fact that they've been providing subgrades, or, you know, their version of grader notes essentially.
Right.
And so, you know, if I was Beckett, I would just like double down at this point. Like, hey, that's what we've been doing all this time, you know?
Yeah.
And guess what? We offer it at all submission levels.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just giving notes to Beckett right now. Okay? Maybe we'll buy Beckett out one day.
I'm telling you, that's the play, man.
We can implement all these
100%.
changes.
Let's crowdfund from these podcast episodes.
Yep. Let's do it. Let's do it. So yeah, that's you know, a good start. I think we'll agree to say that about this first announcement. All right. The second one, we knew this for a little while, but now it's official. With PSA acquiring the eBay vault, they've made it more seamless to have your PSA submissions be auctioned off on eBay as soon as they're graded via the PSA eBay account, which has really ramped up. I've been noticing lately, they've really ramped up with the number of auctions they're putting up each day or each week. I'll include the link to the PSA eBay account in the show notes below, so you can check it out for yourself. But yeah, Hyung, what do you think about this?
I think we spoke about this, I think, before too, anticipating that this is what PSA was doing, and when they announced it originally. And I think it does bring value. Like, personally, I probably not use their service. Like, I probably wouldn't be a person, but I could see it bring value to the marketplace at the end of the day, because if you're able to, if you're like, for instance, a reseller, mm-hmm. I think that's a great option too, because it stops the transition from shipping cards, from handling it. Like, you still have scammers out there where, you know, people don't get what they paid for, and, you know, they ship something differently. So it avoids that. So I see the value in it, and I personally wouldn't use it because I like dealing with the card still, right? But then it does save on shipping and the extra step of having to do the work. So if you're not necessarily a hobbyist, I think it's very attractive. And if you're in the hobby where you're strictly someone that, you know what, I'm going to hold this for a year, and then, you know, I'm going to see where the prices are and be able to sell it without, you know, being an expert packager, or, you know, someone who ships out cards on a daily. I
would totally use this though. As a flipper, like for some cards.
Right.
If you know you just want to flip it, you kind of got a hit and you're not interested in keeping it long term as a short term flipper, this is great. You know, you submit it to PSA, you know you'll get better value for it because it's graded with PSA. And then if they're doing the work to auction it off, and I can't remember, I think we saw what their cut is. That's going to be important, right? But, you know, you're still taking a cut from eBay if you did it yourself too. Right. So I think that's kind of a wash there. So yeah, if you're a short-term or quick flipper, then this is great. And I think like we were saying in that previous episode, this was exactly why they wanted to acquire the eBay vault, just to make this whole seamless integration between PSA and selling cards as seamless as possible. All right, the last one that I want to discuss for today's episode is, and I don't think this is not as well known, but PSA also partnered with Courtyard.io, which is essentially, if you never heard of Courtyard, it's a marketplace that makes it easy to own, manage, and trade physical cards on the blockchain. All right, so the cards are securely vaulted, like the physical cards are securely vaulted and insured at Brinks, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, the security company, and they can be purchased with credit cards or crypto. So the partnership with PSA involves ripping digital packs or virtual packs, but the cards that are revealed are actually physical graded cards, which you can either redeem and then keep the physical card vaulted, or I assume sent to you. You could trade them, or accept an instant 70% fair market value buyback offer, right? So the way I see it, it's another way to buy repacks with a digital twist. It's actually something Arena Club has been pushing hard lately as well. So it might be familiar to you already. But yeah, thoughts on this partnership and just generally selling repacks this way?
I think the repack world is getting a lot more popular because I think one important thing in the macroeconomics of things is the liquidity of useless slabs. I wouldn't say useless slabs, but tough to sell slabs. So it gives an avenue where think for me, if I had slabs that were kind of not worthless to me, but still held value, I think an easy way to, liquidate that with least amount of work would be, whether it's Arena Club or Courtyard or even like the smaller repack people that kind of create their own repack, mystery packs, right? So one, I think repacks have always been around. I remember back before the hobby exploded, I would just go on Facebook and watch Facebook lives of repackers, but they were like $100 slabs or $100 mystery packs, $250, $500, and $1,000. And this guy would just spend all day just pulling out some crazy cards, because if you're paying $1,000 a pack and the chase is like a $3,000 card and you hit it, it's a big wow moment. So I remember back in the days before Arena Club and Courtyard existed, this was a thing of the hobby. So it's like, if you look back and that was like 4 years ago, what's the evolution of repacks, for instance, right? What we're seeing today is exactly what we talked about 2 years ago or 3 years ago when, NFTs were popular. We are saying one day somebody's going to figure it out and attach NFTs to basically sports cards, a physical asset, right?
Yep.
And going back to our previous conversation where we talked about the PSA vault, it's the same thing. It's like if you could skip out on all the process and now it becomes just everything digitally, meaning it's still a physical card, but you don't have to necessarily hold the product, ship the product, but you have a dashboard where you're controlling everything. You see the value. You can, liquidate whenever you want. So I think there's a lot of value, and the evolution of kind of what Courtyard is doing is interesting, because I think that's the evolution of, mystery packs in general. And I think it does provide a lot of value in the macro lens for liquidation for other people. So that's an economy itself, right? So and this is what we talked about. It just takes, and the founders, I believe they raised $7 million for Courtyard originally back in 2022. And these guys are San Francisco based guys that are in the hobby, anyways, right? So, and I believe one of the founders was an engineer for Apple. So you see a lot of these guys that kind of are good at what they do outside of the hobby, and that now they're implementing kind of like things that they're good at into the hobby, right? So that's what exactly what we've talked about the past couple of years, that as innovation happens, as technology increases, more and more people are gonna see the opportunities of where the whole industry is going. And look what they've done. 2 years ago, you would have said, "Oh, this won't work." But they got PSA's attention. They got a lot of people's attention. And we always say this: if you bring value to one of those big players, that's all you need to do, because now you've piqued interest in that, and you've created value from a business lens, right? So we're seeing it, and we've talked about this for years, that NFTs are going to be one and the same with sports cards. We just don't know how it's going to look in the future, and this may be obsolete in a year or 2 years, who knows, but it's going to be the evolution to the next thing with digital assets, right? So, and I believe a couple of the shareholders are big collectors, not outside of the sports card world. So I believe like Pokemon, there's huge Pokemon collectors, a big sneaker collector. I believe someone collects watches. So I think they're going into the whole reselling market kind of with that.
Right. Yeah. All different kind of collectibles, but yeah, great points. I think for me, the obvious thing is that it addresses the problem of for repacking, or for repackers anyway, back in the day, is the lack of transparency, right? You just don't know what hits are available. And now with the Arena Club and I believe the same thing here with this PSA Courtyard partnership, you at least know the inventory,
Right.
And you know the value of some of these hits instead of just guessing, and I think that's what makes this very appealing, to do in a digital way where it's secured by blockchain technology. I know NFTs are a dirty word for some people, but it is basically using that kind of technology to make things even more transparent. You got digital ownership, so you're not going to lose this physically graded card in the vault somewhere. You have that sense of security in what you own. And that's kind of, a good example of this is I went to the CSC card show here in Toronto Markham area recently. Brought my son. I don't know if you saw my 5 Card Guys reel, where we just really went from one Pokemon booth to the next. Yeah. And then in one of the booths, there was a repacker. I'm not saying he was shady or anything, but he was selling mystery packs. And then, my son wanted to buy it. But then me, I'm like, I don't know.
What's in it?
You don't know what's in it. Yeah, exactly. And, you can trust the guy saying, hey, you can hit this or that. But
you will never know.
At the same time, yeah, he could say whatever he wants, right? Yeah. And so, of course, my son's like, all right, I want to buy it. And I talked him out of it. But, with everything on digital, if you know ahead what's available and what isn't, and what kind of hits you can get, that gives you more, more peace of mind for sure when you get into these repacks.
And
right?
I think Arena Club started that trend, and I think it was a year ago we talked about Arena Club a bit and what they were doing, and I thought it was great that it's full transparency. What cards to chase, what cards been you have the potential, what you're getting into. So I think that's something that the digital world allows and technology allows, and that's why it's all perspective. And you said it yourself, like NFTs are a bad word, in today, but we're only looking at the lens of the past year and what NFTs are. We still have no clue the potential of NFTs. So we're still living in that evolution. So it's like, as people use their skill set to kind of unfold and unpack the problem solutions that they see, I'm telling you, it's going to be more and more apparent that, they're going to use this technology to now make their product better. Because like you said, if let's just say that guy with the Pokemon mystery packs had a full transparency of all the cards that were in it, I'm pretty sure you would have, made a decision to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take the chance, because maybe there's 3 cards in that whole mystery pack that you're like, oh, this would be sick to hit, or whatever it may be, right? So.
Right, exactly. Yep. And we could finish off with this, but I like your point of that this could be the foundation for what's next, right? This might not be the full evolution. It probably
isn't. Yeah,
definitely isn't. But we're building on something, and we're learning from their mistakes and what can be improved, and in the future, like when things are even more seamless, you won't even know that it's blockchain or NFT technology. You'll just say like, oh, I just know that this is secure.
Yeah. And
you don't have to know how the mechanics work of it, as long as you trust, the provider or the company that offers, the whatever their service or product is.
Yeah.
So
and I
just
think,
the beginning.
I think Courtyard's kind of smart with it, because like I say, if they're just seeing it in the eyes of value to PSA. So it's something that, down the road, PSA is going to get into as well. Mm-hmm. They have a very quick way of executing that. They don't have to start from scratch.
Exactly.
So it's like when people see the opportunity in that sense, I think there's massive, and this is for any entrepreneur listening out there. It's like, that's the way you got to think about the hobby, is not be the next PSA. It's more, how do you bring value to the big dogs so that, maybe you get bought out, maybe, you have a payday. And I think that's what Courtyard's doing is, just bring value to the community so that, a big dog like PSA can eventually take him.
Yep. Great point to end this episode on. So 3, kind of cool announcements from PSA, and I'm sure we won't hear the end of these kind of announcements from PSA moving forward, and hopefully other card companies. All right, thanks again for tuning in to our Friday edition of Cards to the Moon, and we'll have a brand new episode for you on Tuesday. See you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.